In my very first ayahuasca ceremony, a gazillion years ago, I had an absolutely miraculous experience of healing. I, up until that point, had really severe migraine headaches that hit me at least twice a month. Really the debilitating, like just wretched kind of headaches. And so I found my way to ayahuasca, and I remember sitting that first day with the shaman. He's like, what are you here to work on? And I hadn't really thought about my intentions, but I'm like, well, I have these horrible headaches. It'd be really cool if I didn't have them. So, hi everybody that's joining. In that very first ceremony, it was really intense and hard, and I'd been purging and not thinking about headaches at all. And I had this experience of going into the center of my brain, and the medicine showed me this place where my headaches came from, and that the reason why that they were manifesting is I was repressing anger. And I'm a pretty ragey being, so it made perfect sense that, oh yeah, unexpressed anger was coming out in a mental way and causing these headaches. And so she's like, well, do you want to let these go? Not to say that they can't come back if you repress your anger again, but like, are you willing to feel it? And I had this massive experience of processing rage for the world and rage for people in my life, and rage. And somewhere in the middle of that, the shaman comes over and does this sucking noise around my temple, and this black nugget came flicking out. And he purged and I purged. And my headaches were gone. I'm like, can it be that simple? But it wasn't simple, because I had to feel, not only in that moment, the rage of all of that repression, but going forward, a commitment of working with my sacred rage so that the headaches don't come back. And that was almost 20 years ago, and I haven't had a migraine since. These little hints of headaches come in, and I have the full accountability and responsibility of working with that energy. And maybe headaches will come back in a different way, I don't know, but this was my lesson. So I open our talk today with that story, because it illustrates that we heal ourselves with the help of medicines and shamans, healers, if you want to call them that, all kinds of different beings and modalities and whatnot that help us get to the heart of why we're hurting. But my emphasis today is that really there's no such thing as a healer, and there's two core reasons. One is that we heal ourselves. And here we are, though, all of us living in a culture where we're indoctrinated, word intended, with the idea that we have to give our power, our sovereignty around our health and well-being to people who, quote, know better. Doctors and nurses and therapists and even shamans, even these beings that we give our authority to, of like, I'm hurting, I don't know why, and there's such a pain and desperation when we're in suffering, whether it's mental, emotional, physical, or all of it. It often is all of it. And we're desperate for help, right? We're seeking externally an answer for why something is hurting internally. But the answer is actually inside of us. It always is. And no doctor, I don't care how brilliant they are, knows our bodies better than we know them ourselves. And we can use plant medicines and people in the medical profession as mirrors to get ideas of what might be happening. But many of us have the trauma of being let down and disappointed by the Western medical establishment, because they don't have many of the answers, especially when it comes to autoimmune issues, mental emotional challenges, things that we go through that aren't as simple as, I hacked off a limb, can you put it back on? That they can do. But cancer and all the illnesses and the things that are prevalent in our culture, it's not an accident that they exist. And there's no one reason why each of us gets the dis-ease that we essentially call in. And so this isn't, they try to use textbooks, right, to solve the riddle of our suffering, but it isn't in a textbook. It's, we get to play detective of finding out what's happening. One of the issues with the allopathic system is that it's in the name, allopathic, which essentially means to attack the disease. It comes with this lens of assuming that the disease or the suffering is an enemy. That perspective causes more suffering. And I know it sounds weird to say in order to really truly heal something, we have to make friends with it. But it's true. Otherwise, we end up playing whack-a-mole. We end up healing something, and then it pops up in a different way. So we might go into remission with cancer and then go into depression, or, contract something else if we haven't heard the lesson. To use the example of my migraine headaches, I heal the migraine headaches, but if I didn't stay accountable for processing my rage, and you know what? Let me be completely transparent. I didn't stay completely accountable for processing my rage. It showed up in my gallbladder. And gallbladder holds a certain energy of resentment. And about a decade ago, I had a crisis with my gallbladder. I was told it needed to be surgically removed, but my dad died because of a botched gallbladder surgery. And so I was like, no, I am not doing that. And I had to go on a healing journey, or I should say I got to go on a healing journey for my gallbladder and really worked with the energy of resentment. So migraine headaches got healed, gallbladder took the hit next. So this is an example of healing being an inside job. And that, there's all these self-proclaimed healers out there, some that actually can perform miracles. John of God, perfect example. Thousands and thousands of people have been in his presence and have experienced magical healing. But what we hear about is the point at which something was lifted. We don't hear the whole story of they went home and then it went to their gallbladder. Like energy moved, because if we're not getting the message of the reason why these things come in to begin with, we are not healing. We cannot heal without feeling and processing the trauma or the dis-ease. There is no healing. It's just a game of whack-a-mole, and it may feel like it. And that's the same is true with ayahuasca. She's not a healer. I don't like calling her that. She's an expander of consciousness. She shows us two core things. I haven't gotten to the second main point I want to, but why we're hurting to begin with, the accountability of that, the reason for it. There is a beautiful story in our suffering, physically, emotionally. I've gone through bipolar issues. I've been alcoholic. I've been massive depression, suicidal. All of these things were rites of passage. I needed them. They were mine. And when I worked with them as friends and decided to understand them and lean in, I gave myself the opportunity to move through. Maybe not permanently, because Earth School is what it is. But the second big thing that ayahuasca teaches around healing, and this may sound a little weird or crass, but the ultimate truth is there's nothing to heal in the big picture. And what I mean by that is she's the medicine of duality. She emphasizes that we came here to hurt, to get sick so that we can get well, so that we can get sick again. We came here to have emotional, mental breakdowns. These are not things that are broken. These are not things that we have done wrong. We just treat them as such. And it's a very strange but very empowering thing to say, can we celebrate our suffering? Everybody does it. Everybody comes here and goes through shit because Earth School has that available. And so treating our journey of healing as more of an adventure and less as I have to solve this because something is broken. I mean, it breaks my heart when I see license or bumper stickers that say things like "fuck cancer," because I'm like, no, cancer's not the problem. Cancer's telling us where we're misaligned with our bodies, our truth, our connection to our hearts. It is not an enemy. It's just information. Everything is just information, and I am not in any way discrediting the pain and the nightmare of what all of us go through in our healing journeys. I'm on one right now. I'm detoxing E. coli, a deadly, nasty bacteria, but he's teaching me a lot of lessons. My body called that in for a profound reason. So in a way, there's no such thing as a healer because nothing needs to be fixed. That doesn't mean we can't bring more light and love and expansive energy to the things that hurt us and not hurt anymore, because we get to heal septic gallbladders and all of the things that I've talked about. But when we treat that as an adventure rather than something broken or flawed, then we're cracking the code that ayahuasca teaches about what this duality consciousness is all about. Nothing is an accident. It's all available. And I say to myself all the time, it's just information. Okay, my body's hurting. It's just information. What's being communicated? And I haven't done anything wrong to experience any of these things. At the very least, that perspective makes it more graceful to work with the reality of what it is to have a body. It's no joke. It's really difficult doing all of this, but we can either celebrate it and have fun with it as we get older and things inevitably happen, and like, here we are. Because it all points to our relationship with death. And if we think death is something to be avoided, which the allopathic medicine world does, right? They keep us alive at all costs, even when quality of life is not there. It's about saving the body. That isn't living, and it certainly doesn't show a relationship of trust with death. And death is not the enemy. It's just it's a homecoming, right? So if we can make friends with that darkness and know that our body's expressions of this dis-ease and the inevitable thing that will kill us, whether it's an accident or a disease or whatever, that isn't a mistake either. We're not supposed to avoid that. So to bring it all full circle, it feels like the path of least resistance in this journey of healing is to accept each thing that comes in, to treat it as sacred information, and to nurture and support ourselves in the process of feeling pain and heartbreak and all the things we go through, because they're not avoidable. So if we can celebrate them, and maybe even equally importantly, be kind to each other in the expression of them, we're doing better here in duality. So no such thing as a healer. Please do not give your sovereignty and your power to anybody or anything around the most important thing that you have, which is the relationship with yourself. That's not to say you can't get advice, but nobody knows us better than we know ourselves. Thank you. Thank you for listening. I'm happy to try to illuminate this topic. It's a big thing to discuss, but I really appreciate everybody listening. Talk about big topics. Next week, I'm going to discuss the medical medium. He's got a lot of interesting things to say about ayahuasca and plant medicines that are actually in some cases completely false. So I want to dispel as best I can some myths that are floating out around there about Mama Ayahuasca. Always trying to defend her. So thank you again for listening, everybody. Be safe, be good to your bodies. It's all just information. Much love. Until next time.